In this section of the tutorial, you will learn Singleton and prototype bin scope. Spring bin scope define the rules for how Spring manages instance of object in your application. When you create an object in your Spring application, you decide how long it will live and how it will be shared among different parts of your code. We have Singleton, where there is only one instance of it, and every time you need it you get the same one. And we also have prototype, where every time you need it you get a brand new copy. So let's start with the example using first bin annotation. So let's define a new class, okay, and we will call this user repository, and inside we have this class. Now let's go to the app config and set it as a bin, add it to the Spring container. So we need add bin annotation public user repository, so we want it to return a new user repository instance. Okay, so this we are adding the user repository to the Spring container. Okay, so now let's go and see inside the app to Java. Let's get this using, we have already initialized the application config, that is the Spring context. We pass the app config as a parameter. Okay, so now let's get the user repository from the Spring container. Okay, equal to, we use the context, we get this by type. Okay, use the get bin. Okay, and we set user repository dot class. We are getting it by type. So what we will do next, we did not define whether it is a Singleton or prototype bin. So let's go back to the app config. Here we define the scope. By default, when we did not add a scope, it is a Singleton. So by default this is a Singleton, and we are giving example on a Singleton, and if you need you can add it using the add scope annotation. You have a scope name and then bin definition, then you can access either a prototype or a Singleton. So it is a Singleton, and remember, even we did not add this, it is a Singleton because by default it is a Singleton. Okay, so now let's try to go to the app config and test if it is a Singleton. Here we have user repository. Let's name this one, and we also have, let's duplicate this and have this as 2. Okay, so now to test the implementation, we will compare this user repository and the second one to see if it is the same. Okay, so let's have the user print the system that out to print. User repository equal to user repository 2. Okay, now let's try to print this and see if it will return true or false. You see, we have true. That is because it is a singleton. We use the singleton to share the same instance to our code. Okay, and let's change this to the, let's go to the app config and change the bin definition. So if we change this to prototype, save the changes, are run, so every time you can see we will have false, because every time we request a bin from the Spring context, it will return a brand new instance, but for the singleton it will return the same instance. Okay, for now let's clean this, and the next thing you will learn it using the stereotype annotation. Okay, so we will use this as a bin, that is that we will test. So let's have a add component annotation. Now you will learn it using the stereotype annotation. Okay, we add the add components annotation, and we will also decide the bin scope. Okay, add scope. Okay, then what we will do next is the scope name, bin definition dot singleton. Even by default it is a singleton, even if we did not add this. Okay, now let's define another class, that is the user service and the product service that will use our singleton. New class, user service. Okay, and inside this we will add the add component for this as well. We want it as a bin. Okay, and let's have the user repository inside this user repository. Okay, and we will annotate this with @AutoWide. It will provide the value for the user repository from the Spring context for us, and then let's define a method to get this. Okay, let's have a public user repository, and we have this user repository, or let's just name this get user repository. This is a method, and what we want it to return is the user repository. So it is returning this user repository that we have here. Okay, so and let's also define a new class and call it product service. It also uses the user repository. So let's copy this and paste it here. Okay, now having two different classes using our user repository, if we check in the app config and compare the value, you will see we have the same value of the user repository here, and also the one that we have in the product service. So let's go to the app config Okay, this line we have here, scan the annotated stereotype that we have classes that we have annotated it with the stereotype annotation and add it to the bin. Okay, so let's test this implementation. Go to the app. As you can see now, we will not longer use the user repository. Let's change this implementation. Okay, so now first we will start with the product service equal to context dot get, that is, we get the reference to the bin product service using the type product service dot class, and we also will get the user service equal to context dot get bin, also by type, that is user service dot class. Okay, now we will check to see that the get user repository method that we define inside both of these classes, either it return the same thing. So we use the user service dot get user repository to see if it equal to the product service dot get user repository. Okay, and then save these changes, print. Okay, we get this error because we did not annotate the product service. Here we annotate this with add component so that it could be added. We are getting the bin that does not exist. Okay, so now that we have added, we can run the program and check to see if it is true or false. Okay, so now all the user repository that is inside the product service and the user service is of the same instance. Okay, so let's try to change it here. So we will change this using the we will change it to prototype. So let's run this and see. You see it's false. Okay, as I said earlier, Spring Bean scope define the rule for how Spring manages instance object in your application. When you create an object in your Spring application, you decide how long it will live and be shared among different parts. Okay, for the Singleton, there is only one instance of it, and every time you need it, you will get the same one. While for the prototype, every time you request of it, you get a brand new instance. That is why if you compare it, we get false. So this is about the Singleton and prototype in this section.